Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire. Hey, everybody, this is Doug Edwards, and I got Justin Terry with us right now, and we are talking to him. He's in Denver, Colorado, is where his church is and where he's pastoring. He's the experienced pastor there, but he's also in San Diego right now visiting some friends and family, and he was willing to give us the time of day while he is out and about. And we met in Israel in December, and he hooked me up with Lance Kramer, who is 36 miles above the Arctic Circle. So the world is a small place, and we've gotten around it quite a bit since December because of Justin. So, Justin, thanks for being here on Youth Worker on Fire. Tell us a bit about your story and a little bit about the church and where you are right now.
It's a good question. Well, hey, Doug, thanks for letting me join you. Honored to do so. It was great to meet you a few months ago. It's crazy to me that you knew my very first youth pastor, Hugh Kirby. I thought that was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been at Journey Church for about 3.5 years. And I am the experienced pastor. I wear a couple different hats, but the experienced pastor, what that means is I oversee our production, our communications, and our welcome teams. And then I also am part of our teaching team. And then I also oversee our residency program at Journey.
Well, that's a hefty pastoral duty. You were telling me a bit about the church. Tell everybody how long it's been growing and how it's doing right now as far as the growth experience.
Yeah, I'm really fortunate. I've been able to work in some really, really healthy churches. I know there's other people that have had pretty tough experiences, but I have been fortunate. Journey, though, is by far the healthiest I've ever worked in. And our lead pastor is a guy named Scotty Priest, and he has been there for almost 20 years. Started with about 70 people, and now we have 3 locations and usually about 3,000, between 3,000 and 3,500 every Sunday. But ultimately, we're just a real church for real people, and our mission literally is to help people take their next step with Jesus. We believe that everybody has a next step to take, whether that's salvation, whether that's baptism, whether that's a small group, whether that's, you get the idea. And so it's just really been a lot of fun. I get to work with some amazing people, not only strong learners or strong leaders, but people that also are individual strong learners, and then also have no problem coaching others and encouraging others. And it's a lot of fun. We really do have a great time, and I'm very fortunate to get to be a part of Journey. Not only because we're growing and all those fun things, but just a lot of really great people.
How do people get in touch with you if they want to talk to you personally after they hear this episode?
Yeah, so probably honestly the best way to contact me is Justin Terry at journeycolorado.com. JUSTIN, T as in Texas, ERRY at journeycolorado.com.
What has been the highlight of your ministry career?
Yeah, ministry highlight. I've got so many, but I think if I had to put into words what I'm most grateful for right now, is obviously I'm incredibly grateful that I met Jesus in middle school. I didn't know him beforehand. I was an angry dude. My parents had split when I was young. We didn't know anything about God, didn't go to church. My dad ends up getting remarried. God captures his heart, changes his life. I end up moving to Georgia in middle school, and my life has never been the same. And so that's number one, of course, salvation. But I've also just been really fortunate to be around some incredible people. I probably don't even recognize sometimes how fortunate I've been to just be around amazing leaders. And but not only that, I've been able to do ministry in different contexts. I've experienced ministry in the Southeast, in Georgia, and in South Carolina. And then I got to go all the way northwest, way northwest, up to Alaska. In fact, when I was in high school, I'd gone on a ski trip in Colorado and was like, man, I want to live out west. I was sick of the heat and humidity. I don't understand how people love it. And, but I had no idea that God was going to call my wife and I northwest, and had some great opportunities for 6.5 years at Change Point Church in Anchorage. And got to be a campus pastor there for a little over 5 years. That was one of the most rewarding and challenging ministry experiences I've ever had, for a number of reasons. And then I got to move 3.5 years ago to Colorado to work with our lead pastor, Scotty, who actually was the guy that discipled me when I was in high school. Me and 2 other guys were still dear friends to this day, Adam and Micah and I. And he looked at us when we were in the 10th grade and is like, hey, I see something in you guys, and I just want to spend some time with you, and I want to pour into you, and I want to teach you how to walk faithfully with Jesus. And so for the next 2 years, every Wednesday we met at Chick-fil-A or Waffle House. It doesn't get better than that. Come on. But we had accountability. We got to just be honest about where we were and where we weren't as high schoolers. And every week we were memorizing scripture and learning what it was like to be a follower of Jesus. And I'm grateful for men like Hugh Kirby, Scotty Priest, my dad, who just really were intentional about pouring into us. And so, highlights, man, I've got a lot. I think my favorite, though, is I've gotten to meet a lot of great people and see God do amazing things. And I've been able to go to multiple places and experience those things. And that's such a blessing.
Yeah, it has to be. And those are incredible places to go. Those are not the places that you've been. Number one, it would seem strange to many, many people all over the world for you to go to Alaska. Not so much for you to be in Denver, even though that is, for those who've never been to Denver before, you fly in, you got Kansas to your right, and you're looking toward the mountains, and you can see the Rockies, and you're still in the flatlands, and it's like a surreal setting. But Alaska, I cannot imagine. I've had people and friends that have been there, and I haven't been there yet. So that was intriguing to me. And I remember we talked about that I didn't have people listening to the podcast in Hawaii and Alaska and places like that. And I said, I reached out to somebody in Hawaii, and you said, oh, well, I know an Eskimo pastor on the Arctic. Would you like to talk to him? So I thought that was unique. But you've been in some incredible places. Who is the biggest influence spiritually? Well, you already told us that basically is that one guy who you're actually ministering with now. He was your biggest spiritual influencer, as well as your dad. But I like to see people outside the parents as well. It's good to know that your dad was part of that, and it was his spiritual journey that had to take place as well. And so what's the guy that was your discipler who's one of your pastors now?
Scotty Priest.
How do you have an encounter with Jesus? How did that happen? You said you were in middle school when that happened, but what was your circumstances? So
I moved from San Antonio, Texas to Fayetteville, Georgia, just southwest of Atlanta at the beginning of my 7th grade year. It's like the scariest time imaginable, right? And so didn't know anyone other than my parents. And but at that point in time, didn't know God. I was angry, just wanted everybody else to hurt as bad as I did. And at that point in time, I just was probably still dealing with, why did my parents split up? And I'm very fortunate too to also have amazing bonus parents who have both been a part of the family for 30 years or more on both sides. My mom remarried, my dad remarried, and I've got amazing extended family. I've seen the grace of God in mighty ways in that. But when I was in 7th grade, I started going to church every week, on Wednesday nights to youth group and Sundays for service. And just over time, it finally started to click. And then in April of my 7th grade year, I was like, I know, God, you're pursuing me, and it's time to surrender and to submit. And I'd love to tell you that immediately my life was radically different, and I was a good kid all of a sudden, not angry. I wasn't. But a couple years later, as being a part of this discipleship group and accountability with my friends and with Scotty over the course of time and God's word, sinking into my life, I noticed over a period of time and even several years that I wasn't angry anymore. I had peace and I had joy, and purpose even. And in my junior year, I really, really wanted to be a sports broadcaster. I mean, I'm a diehard sports fan. That's what I wanted to do. I was in a program at our school in high school. It was the best one in the state. So I was ready to go. However, God started just kind of tugging a little bit. And so I started meeting just with wiser people than myself, reading books, reading the word. And over the course of about a year, I genuinely believed that God was calling me to serve in ministry. I mean, obviously we're supposed to be ministers of the gospel as Christ followers, but in the local church context. And so from there, things just kind of happened, and God has an amazing way of opening certain doors and closing others. And, I've always tried to approach ministry with an open hand. Some people, they know at 18, 19 years old, hey, God's called me to ministry. I'm going to be a senior pastor. I'm going to do this in 6 years, 7 years. I've never approached it that way, right or wrong. I've always just kind of been open-handed, and I don't focus as much on a specific role. Even I believe God has called me to a place every time that I've moved. I've never sought them out, which is kind of wild. I mean, you asked me one time when we were in Israel, how did you end up in Alaska? And I was like, well, I knew one of the guys from a camp that I'd worked at years before. And for whatever reason, God put he and my wife on his heart. And over the course of a couple of years, we prayed through it, and boom, we packed up and moved. And then when we left Alaska, we weren't trying to leave. In fact, I probably could have retired there. But in the course of a week in May of 2022, I had 3 churches reach out in 7 days. And my wife and I were like, oh, that's a little different. And so at that point, we were like, we need to hit pause and just pray. And I ended up even bringing our leadership involved. Hey, guys, I'm praying through this. I don't know what to do. I promise I didn't update my resume or send it out. But over time, we just knew that it was the right decision. So that's how we ended up in Colorado. But again, another situation of, God, where are you calling us and why? But we're open-handed. And it's been challenging along the way too. Every one of us have incredible faith stories, but involved in that is incredible heartache or tension or frustration, pain, even in many cases. But we have just tried to the best of our ability to walk hand in hand together, my wife and I, and just be open-minded and open-handed. And this is where we're at.
I think it's just a great message. I'm trying to think of who it was that talked about that. Someone was a well-known communicator, but they said, we try to put categories around how we're going to serve God because we know if we can categorize it, that people will be more accepting, even our families, of why we're doing certain things. But when we serve God, we don't really fit in a category because he wants to move us the way he wants to move us in ministry. And many times it's not even the way, that we would have ever conceived of. And in some cases, not even in a church. So I think the way that you were approaching it sounds to me like more of a Jesus way and a movement. The original church was created and grew, which your buddy Lance talked about. You know the stories that he probably told me because you know him.
Well, I got a Lance story for you if this is okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me about Lance Kramer.
So when I'm up at Change Point, Lance, he's the campus pastor up at Kotzebue. I was the campus pastor at our location called Tacotinu at the time. Now it's called Change Point Northeast. My other buddy Brandon, he was the campus pastor in the Valley, which is about an hour away from Anchorage. And then Scott Mariner, our main teaching pastor at Change Point, we'd all be on a Zoom call every Monday to debrief, how do things go at our different campuses and that kind of stuff. Well, we're all in the office together, Zooming with Lance, who's literally on this aluminum fishing boat because it's summer. And he's on a Zoom call, which, okay, that's no big deal. I mean, it's Lance. This is what he does. All of a sudden, he pulls out, I kid you not, he might even have pictures. He pulls out a harpoon. Who owns a harpoon?
Who owns a harpoon? That's right.
B, we're on a campus pastor Zoom call, a work meeting. He's in a boat in the Arctic Circle, pulls out a harpoon, nails a seal and drags the seal onto the boat in the middle of this. My brain exploded. I still can't even fathom that happened for all the reasons. But no, Lance is truly a remarkable man and one of the most faithful evangelists I've ever seen. And he and I have had a lot of fun, a lot of good times together. But, I did want to go back real quick and say, it may sound like my wife and I are the most super spiritual people and, we're so in tune with the Holy Spirit and how everything's moving. But I got to be honest, I'm also selfish, and I want to be in control. I want to have a plan. I want to be strategic. And so that's what I mean by sometimes walking faithfully with God takes God also removing you from comfort, removing you from self, removing you from what your dreams and ambitions might be, even if it's for a season. But he's doing that to prepare us. He's doing that to carve into our hearts his way, not ours. And I hate all of that, but it's so necessary. And
it's painful, isn't it?
It can be. And we just often still kick against him. And yet, again, ministry highlight, man, is just, I've seen God's faithfulness throughout my life in the most bizarre ways and painful ways. But yet all through that, I've seen him proving himself again, every time worthy, proving himself every time he is God and he is faithful. And that's true. I believe it wholeheartedly.
Well, let's talk about your wife, because we're in God's army. All right. So when I talk to service people, I also thank their spouses, whether it's a man or a woman that's in the service, whoever their spouse is. I'll say, thank you for serving, because, if one is serving, you're both serving. If one is serving, the family's serving, and they are very appreciative of that. Well, the same with your wife. You may be called, they may put your name on the paycheck. How did you guys meet, and how did that come about, and what was that journey like?
Yeah, so this is going to sound a little goofy, but I'll be as fast as I can. Yeah, my junior year of high school, her dad is a worship pastor. And when I was a junior in high school, the church that I was at, New Hope in Fayetteville, called John to be the worship pastor. Well, his wife, Donna, is amazing. And then they have two kids, Bethany and Zach. Zach's older. And I was in high school. Bethany was, I think, in 5th grade. So I didn't even know her, but I knew her parents. And my folks and her folks were really close early on. I mean, they were good friends, and they did mission stuff together, and pretty cool how just really strong friendship. Well, then I go to college, I get out, I'm doing some ministry stuff, and she's in college. And then I go back to Virginia for grad school, and her and I just became really, really good friends. Cause I'm 6 years older than her. We just became really good friends. Well, then I moved to South Carolina after that and become a youth pastor. And about a year in, we started dating, and then got engaged and got married. And I often joke that there's proof that there's a God, because she said yes. But no, she truly is remarkable. And we are going to celebrate 12 years in August, which is amazing. I was a guy for years, I'm just being very honest, never thought I had the capacity to be married, because I just had a very jaded view of marriage. But God did a lot of work in my heart and life. And I would often talk about how I was commitment phobic and blame others or blame circumstances. And God made it pretty clear that, no, that's a choice that I was making. And so again, over time, just really kind of rewired my brain and heart. And we're going to hit 12 years. We've got 3 amazing little dudes, Graham, who's 8, Jack, who's 6.5. And then Josiah was a Colorado surprise. He'll be 3 in September. And the thing about my wife is she's not just a faithful woman of God. She is those things. She's kind, and she's way smarter than me. Everybody knows that. And that's true. By the way, I'm not just saying it to sound awesome, but she's also remarkably gifted. She has a beautiful voice. She can do graphic design. She can do marketing, public relations. P.S. I'm not trying to get her a job. But she is truly a very, very gifted woman. And I've just seen, not only has she been so supportive of me throughout ministry, but watching her be a mom to our 3 boys has just been one of the coolest things I've ever been able to see. And she actually doesn't sing right now, and she doesn't design right now. Now, she is a professor at a school. She has been for about 11 years or 13 years now. It's a school in South Carolina. She does online, and she loves it, and it's a good outlet for her. But I've just seen her be so faithful and serving our family and walking through the good, the bad, and the ugly with me. And for her to be okay, 2 years into marriage, to pack up and move 4,000 miles. That's pretty cool. Pretty neat.
Thank you for sharing that and about her, because love stories are a big story for us and God's kingdom and who we are on earth and what we do. Because love commitment, especially when you went through divorce with your parents. And I was listening to Lee Strobel, and he said there was a stat out there. He said that most atheists became atheists somewhere around middle school. And it usually was from a divorce or absentee father, and it's usually around the dad, what happened there, and but divorce was one of those things. So it's the grace of God that you're here with us, and many, many people like you. Yeah, what was your lowest point in ministry then?
Beth and I had a lot of things when we were in Anchorage. I had a lot of things happen in the course of 5 years, and so for me, the lowest point kind of it was a stairwell down to get to this place. But in 2018, we launch our new campus. Never done that before, so that's awesome, right? But there's a weight to that. There's energy in that, right? So that's pulling on you too. My first Graham was born that year, which was amazing. And then the following year, our location is growing. And we were right next to J-Bear, which is the military base, the northern end of Anchorage. But we were almost self-sustaining as a campus already within a year and a half. We were averaging about 150 people. But then in July 19th or 14th of 2019, we have a house fire. That was super fun. And meanwhile, it started in the garage. It was 4 a.m. And, Graham is a year and a half old. Bethany's pregnant with Jack, and she's about 4 or 5 months pregnant at this point. So we walked through that whole thing together while we're still ministering, of course. And then we all got to experience that little thing called the pandemic in 2020. And we were meeting in the school, or in a school. And so we had to be out of the school for 6 months, just because the school system was shut down and those kinds of things. So that was just challenging. And we had some key people either leave. One passed away. That was devastating. He was an incredible leader in our group. So you just start adding all these things together. And then as, life begins to come back to normal a little bit, we have a lot of people rotate out of the state that were part of our campus because they're in the military. And so, in the course of 6 months, we went from, 150 people to about 80. And then we start asking those questions about the finances of the location. Is it viable? Can we keep doing this? And so at this point, though, if I'm being honest about looking back, I wasn't healthy. Sure, I read my Bible. Sure, I was teaching a good bit. Sure, I prayed a lot. I prayed with people, but I didn't pay attention to myself. I didn't pay attention to how empty my tank was getting. And so I remember there was just this moment where I was meeting with the elders regularly. We were having family meetings as a location or a campus and just asking that question, God, do you want us to keep moving forward? Because we deeply believed in it. We weren't ready to say no, but then sometimes you have to think about the practicalities of it. And ultimately everybody agreed, let's move forward for another year. And although I was elated at the time, I also just had a harsh reality hit me in the sense of my gaslight has already been on for a while, and we still got to drive another 1,000 miles. And so my point is that over those 4 or 5 years, I wasn't consistently filling up the tank. I wasn't as connected to God as I needed to be. I wasn't talking, in a good way, just talking to a counselor, talking to somebody, hey, this is what's going on. How do I navigate this? How do I navigate all of these things, being a parent, new campus, much bigger job? Oh, there's a fire. And then there's this pandemic. I mean, ultimately, I didn't follow spiritual disciplines in that season of life the way I probably should have either. I didn't fast the way I needed to. I didn't take time away. My tank wasn't full. And so that towards probably May of 22 was probably the lowest I've ever been, just on a real level. I also wasn't exercising at all, and so you just combine all these things. Flip side of that, my marriage continued to get stronger, and that's faithfulness of God and also the faithfulness of my wife. And so that was probably the lowest. And then I moved to Colorado, and over time, God has been filling that tank. God has been refining. He's still deeply doing that. In fact, I'm in the middle of discovering quite a fefew things that I'm definitely not ready to talk about, but it's just stuff that God's exposing that I'm learning and trying to reconcile and figure out. And it's a process. It just doesn't stop, but that was probably the lowest. It was long, short story long. That was probably one of the lower points.
God is constantly growing us and breaking us, allowing us to break down so that he can build us back up. And that's hard. And it's hard to share those things because most people only want to hear, okay, how can we be the greatest and the best and better? And well, part of that is how can you navigate the lowest point in your life?
Yeah. And I'm grateful it happens because it shows that God is still pursuing. That matters. I mean, woo.
Appreciate you saying, probably should have had a counselor, should have had this, should have had that. And we see a lot about coaches and different things like that people hire now. And I've had some guys even in missions work that were develop great missions for students on a national, international basis. And I had no idea that he had someone coaching him that he started paying at one point in his life. He said, I just needed more. I needed someone that was actually a coach. And I paid somebody, and he said those things really paid off and helped me develop as a person.
No, it's awesome. And I wish I could go back, but I can't. And so from this day forward, right? I mean, it is what it is. So
what was what's your favorite verse or book in the Bible, and how has it affected you?
Easy. My favorite book, this may sound wild, but is Jonah, actually. And the reason why is, to me, in one book, I mean, obviously all throughout scripture, you're seeing the heart of God exposed. I mean, in his pursuit of mankind, his patience, his kindness, his creativity, his strategy, all the things that are going on throughout the entire collection of 66 books. But Jonah, especially in 4 chapters, in my opinion, just shows you the depravity of man, God-fearing or not, the depravity of man, right? The selfishness and the angst and the judgment, the prejudice on some levels. I mean, I think about Jonah, who, if I was in his shoes, would I have done the same thing? Probably. Why would I go save this group of people that are terrible? And so he rebels, obviously. And, God's like, hey, bro, I'm in control. You're not. But even throughout that storm, you have this group of random sailors. They're just doing their job. They're ferrying him from one place to another. This crazy storm comes out of nowhere. They're throwing stuff off the boat. They're, praying to idols and all the things. And yet, even in the midst of Jonah's disobedience, these men meet or at least get to see God. And I remember in verse 10, they ask him the question, what have you done? Or why have you done this? Another translation. And ultimately, they know that he's a Hebrew. They know that he knows the God of the universe. And they're asking this question, if you know God, what have you done or why have you done this? These guys have been searching their entire lives, and yet they're trying to save this guy that's ultimately bringing pain and potential destruction to their lives, and they're trying to save him. And then ultimately he relents and jumps into the ocean. And when I was a kid, when I heard these stories in middle school, I always thought God was punishing Jonah when he swallowed him up by a fish. And the truth is God was saving him. And even his prayer inside of the belly was so raw and so real and so honest. And then God gives him a second chance. And not only that, but God uses his rebellion to save those sailors, to save the people of Nineveh, because shockingly they listen. And so you see God's patience, you see God's heart, you see God's pursuit, you see the fact that he's God, right? He controls all things. And so that you see his power and his might. And then at the end, Jonah becomes human again and is really annoyed because he wanted to see them destroyed anyway. And so in these 4 books, you just see all of these neat things weaving together about, personalities and emotions and angst and judgment. But ultimately you see the hand of God, and you see grace, and you see protection, and you see second chances. And so for me, in 4 chapters, it is just a beautiful story. But verse 10 is also a reminder for me, not that I've always followed this faithfully, but it's a reminder for me. I know God. I know that I'm a child of God. I know who I am in Christ, but yet why don't I always follow him faithfully? And so it's humbling.
I'm so glad you shared that story. Certain things that are hard to read at different times in our life. Somebody needed to hear that. I needed to hear that. That was good. But someone else, and maybe thousands of someone else's are need to. When we're going through stuff, there's a lot of other people going through the same things we're going through, and we all feel alone, like nobody else but us. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. What a great book that we don't talk about enough. What 3 parts of the globe? If there were only 3 parts, throughout the world that you would like to have your story being heard at? What comes to your mind?
I still have a huge heart for the people of Alaska. That doesn't leave you. The context in that state, the culture of that state is powerful. And I want to see that entire state come to know Jesus. And I obviously know quite a few people there because I spent 6.5 years there, but even tag teaming with Lance up in Kotzebue multiple times, just seeing a side of life that is unfathomable. That is a place that still I think often about. I know that we were supposed to move, but it doesn't change the heartache in that. I think that's true. And so that's one place. I would also say the UK. I've spent a lot of time in London and in Wales. I know that the church is beginning to thrive in ways that it has not in centuries. And I hope that continues. And I got to spend an entire summer there at a church in Brighton after my freshman year of college. And then we did a bunch of mission trips over there when I was at New Hope as a student. And then I'd go often just to go on the trip as well because it was fun and meaningful. So the UK is a place that I really want to continue to see God do amazing things. This may sound selfish, but I want to see America wake up. I want to see America wake up. All the things that are going on. And people ask me all the time, do you watch the news or do you watch this show on the news? I was like, no, because I can't take it. I can't handle it. I get really mad. And so I have to choose to opt out. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that, but America needs to wake up. And I think you're starting to begin to hear stories and see realities that it is in some ways. But I want to see the gospel capture this country again in a fresh way.
Your story matters. The connections that have happened in the past few months, the miraculous hike for some of us for over 6 months before we got to Israel. But there's been an incredible march for us to get to your interview from those months ago because God had a design going on. I appreciate you, appreciate what God is doing with you, and the journey that you've gone through with your parents, as well as your wife, the places you've been are nothing short of God moments.
No question. And I've been able to see. It took 15 or 20 years, but I saw grandparents come to know Jesus. I saw my mom come to know Jesus. My stepdad come to know Jesus. It's truly, it's amazing. And one other thing, if you don't mind, I would love to just share, because this is something that's helped me. It's every day. This helps me, but it's a friend of mine named Michael Warren told me this when I was in Alaska. We were talking about just a variety of things, but we were talking about challenging times and those kinds of stuff. And he said, man, he goes, I want to encourage you with this. So I can't take credit for it. But he said 2 things. Remember your calling and trust the process. And sometimes we don't remember either of those things or think about either of those things in the midst of hard times or struggle or being alone or not knowing what to do. And, God's constantly working, even in the midst of silence, it seems like, or the unknowns or pain. He's always moving. He's always working. And he doesn't sleep.
Doesn't sleep or slumber. I always loved that verse, little King James version there. He's awake. So when you and I get to rest, he's still got the angel armies fighting and going at it for us. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. That is so key. Well, listen, Justin, I'm going to let you go. You got plenty of hours left on the West Coast in San Diego there, but I'm afraid it's bedtime for us here finally. Keep it rocking there in Denver and enjoy your time in San Diego. I've loved my times in San Diego. Just a beautiful place.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. I'm very, very fortunate. So thanks for having me on. And God bless you too, man. I appreciate all that you're doing just to encourage people and make much of Jesus.
All right, brother.
All right. Well, take care.
All right, you too. Bye.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.